Have you ever noticed something unusual about many people from Generation Z? Even though they are still very young, many of them often say they feel mentally older than their age. Some feel emotionally exhausted in their early 20s. Some feel like they've already experienced too much too soon. And others feel strangely disconnected from the idea of youth itself. But why does this happen? How can a generation that is still so young already feel mentally older than the years they have lived? To understand this, we need to look at the environment Gen Z grew up in. Unlike previous generations, Gen Z grew up in a world where information was never limited. From a very early age, they had access to the internet, social media, and a constant stream of global news. This means many Gen Z individuals were exposed to adult-level information long before they were emotionally ready for it. In earlier generations, children often learned about the world gradually. But Gen Z often encountered the world all at once. Through a phone screen, they could see economic crises, global conflicts, climate concerns, social debates, and countless personal stories from people across the world. The human brain was never designed to process that much information so early in life. And when the mind is exposed to complex realities at a young age, something interesting begins to happen. The brain matures faster in certain psychological ways, not physically, but emotionally. Gen Z has grown up thinking about issues that previous generations might not have encountered until much later in life. Questions about the future, questions about stability, questions about identity and purpose. When young people begin thinking about these kinds of topics earlier, they often feel older internally. But that's only one part of the story. Another reason Gen Z often feels older than their age has to do with comparison. Social media allows people to see the lives of thousands of others every single day. Achievements, careers, relationships, success stories. Constant exposure to other people's milestones can create the feeling that life is moving very quickly. Even when someone is still very young, seeing others who appear successful can create pressure. The brain begins measuring progress constantly. Am I doing enough? Am I behind? Should I have figured out my life already? These questions can make a 22-year-old feel the same kind of pressure that people once felt in their 30s or 40s. But there is another psychological factor that many people overlook. Gen Z grew up during a time of rapid uncertainty. Economic instability, global pandemics, technological disruption, and constant social change. When people grow up in uncertain environments, the brain often becomes more alert and cautious. Psychologists sometimes describe this as accelerated awareness. Young people begin thinking about long-term stability earlier. They become more aware of risks, challenges, and potential obstacles. This awareness can make them feel older than their years, not because they have lived longer, but because their minds have been exposed to complex realities earlier. But there is an even deeper layer to this phenomenon. Many Gen Z individuals are highly self-aware. They spend more time reflecting on identity, mental health, and personal meaning than many previous generations did at the same age. Conversations about anxiety, emotional well-being, and personal growth are far more common among Gen Z. This self-awareness can be incredibly valuable, but it can also create the feeling of carrying emotional weight earlier in life. When someone spends a lot of time analyzing their thoughts, their emotions, and their future, life can start to feel heavier. And when life feels heavier, people often say they feel older. But here is the important insight that psychology often highlights. Feeling older than your age does not necessarily mean something is wrong. In many ways, it reflects how quickly the world has changed. Every generation develops psychological patterns based on the environment they grow up in. For Gen Z, that environment included constant information, global awareness, and rapid change. These experiences shape the way the brain understands life. So when someone from Gen Z says they feel older than their age, it may not simply be a dramatic statement. It may be an honest reflection of how much the world has asked them to process. But here's the twist. Even though Gen Z often feels mentally older, they are still discovering what it means to live in a world that moves faster than any generation before them. And sometimes the challenge is not learning more about the world. Sometimes the challenge is learning how to slow down inside it. Because even in a fast and complicated world, the human mind still needs moments of curiosity, creativity, and exploration. Those moments are what keep life from feeling like a burden, and they are what remind us that being young is not just about age, it is about how we experience the world. If this perspective helped you understand Gen Z a little differently, you're not the only one. Every generation develops its own psychological patterns, and understanding those patterns can help us understand each other better. If you enjoy exploring psychology and human behavior like this, make sure to subscribe and like, because sometimes the most interesting insights about the human mind come from understanding the world people grow up in.